Here's everything that you need to know about Devil's Head. What's going on, Midwest skiers and riders? Got an awesome episode for you today. This is another one that brings back childhood memories for me. We're going to be talking about Devil's Head, which is located in southern Wisconsin. We're obviously going to dive into all that in just a second here. But if you're new around here, we do these complete guide videos. Our goal is to do a video for every ski area in the Midwest. I think there's 120 of them. So if you like this sort of content that goes into deep dives and shows you everything from the ski area, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because we have a lot more coming out for 2025, which we're super excited about. But as we do with all of these videos, let's get started with some basic information before we dive into the actual POVs. All of this video that you're about to see on screen here was filmed on January 20th of 2024. Now, we've said this for every single video. I will repeat this again just in case we were watching this video from years from now, but 2023-24 was a rough season for natural snowfall and for snowmaking weather. So if you see some brown, now Devil's Head actually did get some natural snow before we filmed this, so this one looks a lot more white than some of our other ones from this season. But as far as like some of the coverage, some of that stuff, that's why. The location is in Merrimac, Wisconsin, which is about 2.5 to 3 hours from Chicago, just depending on where you're at, about 1.5 hours from Milwaukee, and about 45 minutes from Madison. As far as opening for the season, they usually open in late November. Weekend after Thanksgiving is usually the goal, and then they go until about beginning to middle of March. One of the things that we're going to talk about throughout this video is that Devil's Head does face south, which isn't ideal. I'm going to give you all the information on why that's important when we ride some of the lifts, so stay tuned for that. But it does affect their late season being able to stay open later. As far as pricing goes, an adult ticket on peak open to close is going to run you $95, $85 for children, and the non-peak is going to be $85 and $75 for children. Night tickets are $40. One thing I do want to point out is they do a Thursday night special, which is just $18. So if you're looking for a value, Thursday nights are definitely the way to go. And the other thing I wanted to note here is I was getting some different prices with buying in advance on their website. So these were just the listed prices that they had on there, but it seemed like if I were to go on and buy a little bit earlier, and we'll put some of that footage on screen right now, the prices were actually less expensive. So the other thing I want to note before we dive into some of the other stats here is that they do have true ski in, ski out lodging and accommodations here at Devil's Head. And it's one of just a few in southern Wisconsin. So if that's something that you're really interested in and important to you as a family or as a skier or snowboarder, this is definitely the place for you, one of the few in that region that offers that. Number of trails, they have 30 different trails. Number of lifts, they have 6 chair lifts and 2 carpets. All 6 of their lifts are quads, which is actually the most quads in the Midwest. They're tied with Welch Village, who has a ton of quads as well. And vertical rise, we always use Google Earth for this, and I was coming up with 460-ish feet of vertical rise. And for those that don't know, or this is your first time watching a video, I use an actual vertical rise. So I count a run. So I'm not counting one section of the ski area to the other section that you can't really ski a full run. I just take a run that is going to be your, the highest point. So come up with 460 is really, really impressive. Usually these numbers are slightly inflated from marketing standpoint. So 460 is a very, very good number, especially for southern Wisconsin. These are some long, nice runs. So speaking of which, let's dive right into this footage. Let's go. All right, as we do with a lot of these videos, we're going to start on the looker's right side of the ski hill and then work our way left. We're going to get started with a ride on lift number 3. This is a 2010 Doppelmayr quad. They are all Doppelmayr. Got my Doppelmayr hat on today to commemorate that. This hill's kind of laid out in a really nice fashion. Everything on your right is going to be advanced skiing and snowboarding, and it gets harder as you kind of go further looker's right. And then everything gets easier as you go looker's left. So it's laid out really nicely, actually, for skiers and snowboarders. On our right here, we're going to be skiing these runs in just a second here. But these are some of my favorite runs at Devil's Head. So this would include the Serpent, Cyclops, which is kind of on our left-hand side here, and then Revenge. Outer Limits, we didn't get to ski. We'll show some of that footage on screen. That has its own little chairlift and pod of skiing that you can get to. They weren't quite ready when we skied to, I think it opened like the next couple of days. Like they were almost there. It was so close, but not quite. But as you can see, I mean, as we're riding up here, these are long trails. Now, they do not have something, just I'm going to point out right now, they do not have any high-speed lifts at Devil's Head, which is a blessing and a curse, depending on what you value in a ski area. Personally, it doesn't bother me as a skier or snowboarder. I don't mind fixed grip quads, especially because if there's no lines, I mean, it doesn't really matter to me so much. I understand if there's no lines and you want to get high-speed laps in, that can be really important to people. But for somebody that, you know, is just out there skiing, and I'm going to be out there for most of the day, and I'm going to get plenty of skiing in regardless, I don't mind it. You know, obviously, if that's important to you, then you can make your decision based off of that. But you're going to basically be able to access some of the most advanced terrain that Devil's Head has to offer off of this chair. So we're going to get to ski all of that, which is super exciting. So we're going to get started with Revenge, and then we're going to take that down to kind of Serpent's Escape, and then way back. So there's a bunch of little like cross-cut trails, pretty typical Midwest, where you're naming all these cross-cuts. We're going to ski a lot of them, maybe not all of them, but that's why it's a little bit confusing with the names. I love this trail. This is definitely one of my favorites at Devil's Head. It doesn't see, especially on a day like today where we're running Chair 3, this run isn't going to see as much traffic just because you have to go off the beaten path a little bit to access this run. And then same thing when you get towards the bottom, you have to kind of traverse across a little bit. But as you can see, it's got a nice pitch to it. It's relatively consistent. There is a little bit of a steeper head wall once you get around the break up here. But I mean, this is, honestly, it's some amazing skiing for the Midwest, especially for southern Wisconsin. You're getting a true 460-foot vertical run, top to bottom, pretty consistent pitch. I mean, these are some really, really fun runs. And every time I go to Devil's Head, I always have to remind myself how fun it is. It's like, you know, this is the first time I think I was at Devil's Head it's been a few years. And every time I go there, I'm always like, man, their terrain is really good because of that consistency factor, because there's not a lot of top to bottom consistent runs in the Midwest. There just isn't. Usually it's either a steep head wall and then flat out, or the other way around. Devil's Head's got it. They got a pretty consistent pitch all the way down, it's really, really cool and makes for some really great skiing. So this run we're going to run down is just Serpent, and we're going to do Serpent a couple of times here with a couple different cuts, but this is just going to be Serpent, the Serpent at the top, and then we're going to go to Lower Serpent. This run is awesome, and it might be one of my, I always have a hard time choosing my favorite run at Devil's Head because there's like 3 of them here that are just so good, and they're just like slightly different enough where it's hard to choose them, and just depending on the day, depending on the conditions, they all are contenders for one of my favorite runs. I love it because this top section gives you some nice consistent turns leading into it, but it gives you a good amount of speed, which is going to be awesome for the lower section here, which you'll see I'll be able to spread open my turns a little bit more, really lean into them, which is absolutely phenomenal about this run. And something we don't get a lot of in the Midwest is these sections like this, where you got a nice solid pitch that you can lean into turns, really try to put them on edge a little bit. It's just a lot of fun. So the Serpent. So we'll run this one in, and then we're going to do a couple variations of the Serpent as well. Now this is the same run, Serpent, but instead we're taking the cut to kind of go over to Serpent's Moguls. Now sometimes they put some Moguls or let some Moguls build up in this section here. Now we talked about that southern facing element, right? You can see that sun right on top of me. So the reason that ski areas don't usually like to be southern facing is because the sun is going to hit it the entire day. So generally speaking, when you make a ski area, you want it to have either face north or you want it to face east. Now Devil's Head faces south, which I think is a pro and a con. And on the very cold days, I think it's awesome because you get the sun the entire day. Like this day, it didn't get anywhere close to freezing, and it was awesome to have sun the entire day. The downside to this is that towards the end of the season, because of the sun beating on those runs is more, it's going to heat up a lot more. So you're going to lose a lot more snow. It's going to get slushy a lot faster. And then at night, it could freeze up as well. So just something to keep in mind as you're planning your trip a little bit. Now we're going to do the Serpent again, but this time we're going to take the Cyclops Chute, which will then take us over to the lower part of what I think is their signature run. Cyclops, lower Cyclops is what we're going to end up skiing. So we're going to do this upper section again. As you can see, just really nice, consistent, I would say blue, blackish, you know, intermediate to advanced style runs, which I think Devil's Head absolutely excels at. Like, intermediate skiers and snowboarders will love Devil's Head because it has so much of this great intermediate advanced terrain. We're going to do this same kind of cut over under the lift, and then now we're going to actually go to the right-hand side, which will then funnel us back out to lower Cyclops. We're going to do a full Cyclops run next after this, so I'll show you guys that. But Cyclops, I would say, is their signature run. It's got a nice just pitch, consistent with that what we've seen from the other runs, and just leads you right back down to that chalet. So as you can see, just some really nice turns to be had here, and we're starting to get into that, you know, just really nice zone where you can just make some really solid turns. And again, just seeing that consistent pitch top to bottom is just something so cool and unique for the Midwest, especially this region of the Midwest. Now we're going to do Cyclops top to bottom. Again, this is their signature run. They put a lot of snowmaking money into this recently. They put all these brand new HKD sticks in. So this is one of the runs that they typically will open with top to bottom. It's a really, really nice run. It kind of takes a little bit of a dog leg to the left. I don't think it's as steep as something like the Serpent or Revenge. There's a run over on the far left side called Devil's Alley, which we'll do a little bit later. I would say that's probably the place you want to start. It's either that or Cyclops. If you're looking to go from a blue square into a black diamond, it'd be one of those two runs. But this is a really, really nice run. Very popular, obviously, as it's their signature run. It's going to feed you all the way down to their main lift, and obviously very lappable. So you're going to get off that like chair 3. You're going to be able to get right back on that chair 3 and just lap this all day. You can see their main chalet right below us. So this is kind of the run that you're going to look up to, you know, looking in this chalet there. So we're going to ride this one in, and then we're going to take a lap down their park. All right, so we're going to jump on down to their park. Devil's Head has a slope-style park that kind of spans the entire length of a run, which is pretty rare for the Midwest. It's kind of cool to see, actually, because those are starting to become a little bit less common nowadays. It was common when I was growing up, and now you don't see it as much. They have some great features. They spread them out in like a slope-style format, so you can obviously hit, have some time in between each of the jibs. So kind of a cool format. I liked it a lot. I will make a note here that they just set this up like the day before I came. So you might see there might be some, some chunks of snow that haven't been quite raked out yet. That's because literally they just set that up this morning and they haven't gotten out to fully rake everything out just yet. But as you can see, some unique and cool features, and it's just cool to have this like slope style format that you don't get a lot of in the Midwest anymore, especially because a lot of our ski areas just don't have the length of run to accommodate something like this, where you're going to be able to get 7, 8, 9 jibs in a single top to bottom run. Just doesn't really happen that often. We obviously have a lot more rope parks, so it's a really cool take on terrain parks, and something that a lot of people will probably enjoy. Then they have usually have a couple of jumps down here, and then it kind of feeds back down right under this chair, which we're going to ride in just a second, which is chair number 1. Now you can take chair 3 or chair 1 to access this park. I think that 1 would probably be a much easier path, but you can do either. So, if one chair is getting crowded, you can go to the other, and vice versa. So we'll ride this one in, and then we're going to take a ride on chair number 1. All right, this is chair number 1, a 2012 Doppelmayr quad. This is going to access your intermediate terrain. So it's so nicely laid out. Like, everybody that's a beginner skis on either the magic carpet area, 0, or the backside, which is 000. Your intermediate skiers are going to ski on this lift, number 1. And then your advanced skiers are going to ski on lift 3, 4, and 4 1/4, technically. So yeah, it's really cool that it's laid out in this fashion that you can kind of almost look at the hill and know the trail map without even looking at it. You just know, like, if you're going to be skiing anything off of like lift 1 and you're an intermediate, you're going to be just fine. The only exception to that is Devil's Alley, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I mean, I love the way that it's laid out in that sense. And Devil's Head, because of its consistency, has some just really stellar intermediate and even intermediate advanced runs. And we're going to ski a couple of those next. The next run, obviously, Cyclops is what I would label as their signature run. But the next in the lineup, I think, would be the Cauldron, which we're going to ski next here. So we're going to run this one in all the way to the top, and then we're going to ski the Cauldron. So this is going to be the Cauldron run, top to bottom. I think this is their signature intermediate run. So it has a very similar vibe to that of Cyclops. Just the way that it's cut, it's just going to be a lot mellower than your Cyclops run. So those two runs are great for intermediate, more advanced skiers, but I would definitely get your start here. Ski this a couple times. Once you feel comfortable skiing this, then you can move up to Cyclops, then move your way further to Looker's right then. But this is just a great cruising run, honestly. I love that Devil's Head, all of the runs are really nicely tree-lined. The view is amazing. I mean, again, you're getting sun all day. There's just, I mean, it's a pretty amazing skiing. It doesn't feel like southern Wisconsin at all when you're here. It definitely feels like you're at a place much bigger than in southern Wisconsin. So I really enjoy the terrain here. This one will see more traffic, so the next one that we're going to do, Dante's Inferno, has a similar vibe, but usually has a little bit less traffic because you got to cut over to it. So pro tip, if you're looking for something a little bit less traveled but want that similar pitch, that would be a good option as well. But let's run this in, and we're going to take it up to the top and do Dante's. All right, so this is very close to the style of the Cauldron. This is Dante's Inferno, like we just talked about. This run, as you can see already, doesn't get nearly as much traffic. Just because, you know, the only way to get to this run is from Chair 1, and you have to traverse over. So obviously the further away a run is from a chairlift, the less traffic it's going to see. So this run doesn't really see a lot of traffic. So pro tip, if you're looking for an intermediate run to practice some turns that doesn't see as much traffic, this is definitely one to check out, Dante's Inferno. Now it does meet up with the Cauldron towards the end of the run, but this upper half here is basically going to be very lightly traveled. And then as you can see, when we get further down, you're going to start to see a little bit more traffic. But just another great little blue cruising run that just kind of dog legs through, nice tree lined. There's just a lot of positive things to say about their intermediate and advanced terrain here at Devil's Head. They just got a really good variety of it. Now I will cut over here and take a look at this little terrain park that they have set up here at Dante's Cutoff. Just a couple of smaller ride-on features here that'll go on through. So this would be, you know, if you're getting started in the park, this would be the beginner park. And then obviously you would go to the Devil's Air Park / Sidewinder that we did a little bit earlier. Now one other thing I want to talk about is this bar right in front of us. The Devil's has 2 bars. So that bar is called the Avalance Bar, and that one is like basically a ski up bar. The other bar is located inside the chalet, so you gotta like get into the chalet a little bit more. But the Avalanche is more like on slope style one. So it's right there, right next to Chair 1. So it offers some great viewing angles. And if you're just looking to grab drinks, I would definitely recommend checking out Avalanche. They also have a patio with some fire pits and stuff. Super duper cool. So be sure to check that one out as well. Next, we're going to take a ride on Lift 0. This is their newest lift, a 2021 Doppelmayr quad. This was just installed. I remember just a few years ago, I think we have some footage of it floating around too, which is pretty cool. And this is going to service basically their highlighted beginner run, top to bottom beginner run, and then a couple of other runs as well, including Devil's Alley, which is the only black in this area, and then Chicken Ridge, which just kind of funnels you out into Dante's Inferno, which we'll ski those in just a second here. So if you're looking for a top to bottom beginner run, this is the lift that you're going to take. Or you're going to take this to the next pot of skiing, which we're going to do a little bit later, which is the 000 lift. You would also take this chair as well. So we'll ride this one in and then do a couple of runs off of this chair. So this is the only black on this looker's left side of the hill, and this is called Devil's Alley. Very, very mellow at the top, and you kind of get this vibe. It's almost like less than a blue, around a blue at the very top, and then it does have a little bit of a head wall towards the end. So this is a pretty good advanced run. I would say it's either between this or Cyclops would be what I would choose next in the list. You know, if you're comfortable skiing a little bit steeper pitches, this would be fine, because like right here you can see it kind of drops off a little bit steeper, but this is another one that's just really fun and doesn't see a lot of traffic, because obviously this is more of a beginner intermediate kind of pot of skiing, so this run just doesn't see much traffic at all compared to some of the other runs. And then next we're going to take the Cutoff here. That is Chicken Ridge, and this will feed us back into Dante's Inferno, and then eventually the Cauldron's Cutoff as well. So this is just kind of another way to get to that run that we did a little bit earlier, that Dante's Inferno, that's a little bit less traveled intermediate run. So it kind of gives you options, though. If you wanted to take lift 0 and ski that run, you certainly could. If you want to take lift 1 and ski that run, you could. So there's two different ways that you can kind of do intermediate runs there, which is pretty cool. Again, I love this kind of stuff because in the Midwest, it's so common for people to just get rid of all the trees and then have everything be wide open. And I love the fact that Devil's Head has all these connecting runs. And even though they are similar and they funnel into similar runs, I just love that you can connect different runs to take different paths. It makes it feel like a whole new kind of pod of skiing, new area, even though it's really just connecting to similar runs, but it makes it feel so much bigger and grander than it actually is. And as a skier, especially as an intermediate or beginner skier, it gives you more variety, which I think is phenomenal as well. So next we're gonna head up and over to a pod of skiing that up until this day, I have never skied this pod, because when I started skiing Devil's Head, I was already an intermediate / advanced skier and snowboarder, so I never really found my way back here, but I skied this for the first time and I absolutely love it. It's amazing. And I kind of wish more ski areas did this, because it's pretty unique. We don't really have a lot of like dedicated, roped off, like fully separate pods for beginner skiers and snowboarders. So this is going to be the 000 lift, which is a 1990 riblet quad. And it services basically just two runs, the Burns and the Meadows. We'll ski both of those. And they're both mellow-pitched beginner runs. So if you're looking a step up, right, from the Magic Carpet area, the very beginners area, this would be a great option to go to. First of all, it is not crowded at all. I think there was just a handful of people on this lift when I rode it. So that means that you're not going to have to worry about crowds or people cutting across. And it's tree lined, and it's its own separate little pod of skiing and snowboarding. It's so cool. Like this is something that when I was younger, I would have not geeked out about as much. But now that I'm older and really appreciate beginners and how much stress that it can be being a first-time skier or snowboarder, having a situation like this is really, really cool, that they have their own little pod of skiing and snowboarding, and they're relatively long runs too for beginners. So the other thing to note is that this lift is not very high off the ground. It's maybe like 20 feet off the ground at its highest peak. So again, for somebody that's riding a lift as a beginner, it's a really good lift to get started on. Now, the only downside to this is that you do have to take the 0 lift to get to this lift. So that's a bummer. But if you can make it up through there, this pod is actually really great for honing in some of those skills before you start to get into one of the more popular runs, which is Devil's Playground, which we will ski a little bit later. But let's run this one in, and then we are going to get started with the Burns. This is the Burns run, and as you can see, there's still cord on this run. I mean, it doesn't get traveled, which again is amazing for beginners. But I love this little zone. It's tree lined. It's so separated. It's quiet over here. You know, you're not gonna have people running into you. If you're a beginner or even intermediate skier and snowboarder and just want to get a couple of laps in without any like traffic or feel isolated, this is the place for you. Or if you're just working on some skills or whatever it may be, this pot of skiing is phenomenal. You can see there's still corduroy, and we're skiing this at this point. It would have probably been 11 o'clock or so. You do have to carry some speed. It obviously is a little bit flatter. I think the Meadows, the next run over, has a little more pitch to it. But again, I love this pot of skiing just for the fact that it's so isolated from the main area that it makes it feel like you're in your own little beginner's land over here. So we'll run this one in, and then we're going to go up and do the Meadows next. So this is the Meadows run. I think this has a little bit more pitch going on to it. So, you know, still really nice beginner pitch though, an amazing run. I think this is awesome. And if you're looking for something before you dive into Devil's Playground, this would be a good start actually. So what I would do personally, you know, if you're brand new, I would start at the beginner's area, take 0 up to 000, lap this a couple times, then do Devil's Playground. Because Devil's Playground is just going to see a lot more traffic. And as you can see on screen here, there's nobody up here. So we'll ride this one in, and then we're going to actually do Devil's Playground next. So you'll get to kind of see, compare and contrast those two runs. So if you zip past that 000 lift, this is where you're going to find yourself essentially. And this is Devil's Playground. So this would be their like signature top to bottom beginner run that most people would take after they graduated from the Magic Carpet. Now we took the back cut because we came from the back area, but on our left, that's where you would actually get on from the main lift. That would be 0. So we're going to be kind of catching up with kind of a little bit of uphill here, but then this would be your main drag. So I think that run is actually called Cirque, technically, that back cut there. But then this is Devil's Playground here. So this is their main beginner run that everybody kind of starts off on. You can see already definitely much more traffic on this run and just a slightly steeper pitch. So again, what I would do if I was brand new and just warming up and slightly nervous about everything, ride 0, obviously go to the Magic Carpet area, warm up there, ride 0 up to 000, lap 000 a couple times, then take Devil's Playground. And then once you feel comfortable with Devil's Playground, you can move over to then chair 1 and do some of those intermediate runs, and then you can move over to chair 4, or 3 rather, 3 and 4, and ski those more advanced runs. So as you can see, just dog legs all the way around, giving a nice mellow pitch, very wide. They have invested in some new snowmaking in this area as well. So gonna have some great snow in here. But yeah, just a great beginner run that's gonna feed you all the way down right in front of, right actually adjacent to the beginners area, which would be Pete's Dragon 2, which we'll ski in just a second here. The other thing to note about Devil's Head is their parking lot is in a little bit of a weird situation. You come in and you park right in front of us here on that right-hand side. The main chalet was back over where we started at chair 3. So you do have to kind of like walk around. It's obviously designed to be ski in, ski out. That's why it's like that. So, but just something to know, if you are parking, you kind of have to park and then walk all the way around. So this is the first of their 2 Magic Carpets. This is 12, and this is the shorter of the 2. So if you're just getting started, this would be the carpet that you would want to use. This whole beginner's area, it has a similar pitch. It's just a matter of how far you go up on the hill. The next carpet that we'll ride goes a little further up, so obviously that would be like your next step up in the progress. But this is an awesome beginner's run. It's completely terrained off. There's no runs running into it at all. You can see the Devil's Playground that we just had on the right-hand side up there. But this whole area is super wide, wide open, great carpets that service it. So it's just a great learning area, and it's right next to the car. So you don't have to walk very far. Obviously, once you get your tickets, you can get your gear and just boom, right onto the hills. So that's pretty cool as well. Or if you're watching, you can watch straight from your car as well. So we're going to get started on this Peach Dragon run, and then we're going to do the next carpet as well, just so you can kind of see the two, even though they're pretty similar. So this would be Peach Dragon. So this is where you kind of get started here. Obviously just super mellow, you know, super wide run, just excellent for beginners. Just another amazing beginner area. And then once you're ready to step up and do the full top to bottom beginners run, this is the lift that you would take. This is carpet 10, and this will take you all the way to the top of that slope. So we'll scan the left side. This one sees a little bit less traffic, so you know, if you're looking for a little bit more isolation, this side over here on Looker's left of me, that's what we'll ski. Peach Dragon 2 sees a little bit less traffic. So, but yeah, just a really, really nice beginner's area. And just something, you know, if you're looking for an area that has a progression of terrain for somebody that's just learning, I think Devil's Head has a phenomenal progression of terrain. And you could see that through, obviously, through going through each of these runs. Not only that, but it's consistent. So that's amazing for development because you're going to have a consistent pitch to work with. And you're not having to deal with fall lines and then going to flat and then, you know, dropping into another fall line. So these consistent runs are really, really huge, especially in this part of the Midwest. So we'll run this one out, and then we will take our final run down Peach Dragon 2. So yeah, just a little bit of a longer run, pretty much the same as far as pitch goes, just going to be obviously longer because we're going all the way up to the top. So nice and wide here as well, goes all the way over to the right-hand side trees there. And you're just going to run this one in, and man, just again, a really nice beginner's area. Oh, Devil's Head. I have so many memories from Devil's Head because it was usually when we went up to southern Wisconsin, because I grew up in Chicago, it would be like a 1-2, so we do Devil's Head, and then we do Cascade, and then, you know, sometimes we would even go to like Tyrol Basin or something. So it's just such a great area that has such great progression of terrain, and you probably saw that throughout the video, right? You have great beginner terrain that then feeds into amazing intermediate terrain that then feeds into amazing advanced terrain. So we did miss a couple of things on the hill, so let's talk about that really quick. So we missed Outer Limits and Roundabout, which is those runs all the way to Looker's right. We're going to put some footage on screen of that. We also have some drone footage. Outer Limits is by far their steepest run. The way that that's laid out is basically it's going to start flat and then have a steep head wall that kind of drops off. So it's kind of taking, instead of it being consistent all the way, like it's basically going to take a flat approach and then take all of your pitch towards the end of that run. Roundabout is kind of a run adjacent to Outer Limits. So that one has a little bit more of a more consistent pitch. And obviously we did not ride Lift 4, which is a 2015 Doppelmayr quad, and we didn't ride the lift that services Outer Limits, which would be 4 1/4, a 1988 Riblet quad. I love that pod of skiing. I think that Outer Limits is a great run, but I certainly prefer the other runs that we did, such as the Serpent or Cyclops, over Outer Limits. I think Outer Limits is fun to do every now and then, but I think given that flat pitch at the top, I just prefer the consistent pitch. I just think it makes it more lappable, and it's something, again, super unique to the Midwest, and especially that region, that to see top to bottom consistently pitched runs is pretty rare in that part of the Midwest. Another thing I want to touch on really quickly is if you look at the trail map, which by the way is a beautiful trail map. It is one of the few trail maps that was done by James Nehughes. All the way on the right side, you'll notice that there is some runs cut for a future expansion, and that is in the pipeline, probably years from now. Obviously, ski areas don't often even know when they're planning on doing it, just because it depends on year to year how they're doing with revenue and all of that. But there are plans to eventually build out another lift there and then expand more run. But if you enjoy this type of content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as we have a lot more of videos like this coming out in 2025. Speaking of, if you have places that you want to experience or see guides of, be sure to drop that in the comments below, as we're starting to build out our 2025 filming schedule. But until next time, I hope everybody has a great week, Pray for that snow, and I'll see you out there.